The sun had just begun to rise over the bustling city of Orion, its golden light filtering through the threadbare curtains of the cramped apartment. The small space they called home felt even tinier under the weight of unspoken tension. Alex sat at the edge of the bed, his hands running through his dark, tousled hair. His wife, Clara, was already up, her soft footsteps echoing from the kitchen. "Breakfast's on the table," Clara called, her tone devoid of warmth. Alex glanced at the clock. 6:45 a.m. She was rushing again. "Like every other morning. Thanks," Alex replied, though he doubted she heard him. Their exchanges had become like this, quick, functional, and void of connection. The love they had once shared seemed like a distant memory, buried under the pressures of work, parenting, and a never-ending cycle of bills. As he stepped into the small kitchen, he saw Clara packing her lunch into a sleek leather bag, a recent purchase that stood out against the rest of their modest belongings. She wore a fitted blouse and black pencil skirt, her makeup perfectly applied, her hair tied into a sleek ponytail. Alex felt a pang in his chest. She looked beautiful, but distant, like a stranger in their home. "You're going in early again?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Clara didn't look up. "There's inventory today. I told you yesterday." Alex nodded, though he didn't remember her mentioning it. "Can you pick up Lily after work? I might be late. I've got a meeting with a client." Clara finally turned to him, her expression impatient. "I told you, I have plans tonight." "What plans?" Alex's voice betrayed his surprise. "Just plans, Alex," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Do we really have to go over this every time I go out?" Alex bit back his response, not wanting to escalate things. "Fine," he said quietly. "I'll figure it out." Clara grabbed her bag and headed for the door, pausing only to say, "Don't forget Lily's snack for daycare." And then she was gone, leaving Alex standing in the empty kitchen with the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. The day passed in a blur of spreadsheets and emails. Alex worked as a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm, a job he had held for nearly a decade. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and it had always been enough to provide for his family, until now. Clara's new job at the luxury boutique brought in more money, but it also seemed to take her further away from their shared life. By the time Alex picked Lily up from daycare, he was exhausted. The 3-year-old greeted him with a bright smile and outstretched arms, her innocence a balm for his weary heart. "Daddy, I painted you a picture," she exclaimed, holding up a piece of paper covered in colorful swirls and stick figures. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Alex said, kneeling to kiss her cheek. "Let's go home and put it on the fridge." As they walked back to the apartment, Alex couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been gnawing at him all day. Clara's distant behavior, her constant excuses, her late nights, it was like watching a crack form in a pane of glass, spreading slowly but inevitably. After dinner, Alex put Lily to bed and cleaned up the kitchen. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. He glanced at Clara's phone on the counter, its sleek black surface reflecting the dim light of the overhead bulb. He didn't want to invade her privacy. He hated the idea of being that kind of husband, but the nagging doubts in his mind wouldn't let him rest. He reached for the phone, his hand trembling slightly. As he picked it up, the screen lit up with a notification. A text message. The sender was saved as E, and the message read, "Can't wait to see you again. Miss you already." Alex's stomach dropped. He stared at the words, his mind racing. Who was E? Why would they send a message like that to Clara? His heart pounded as he scrolled through the messages, each one more damning than the last. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Are you free tomorrow? Let me know when Alex isn't around." The phone slipped from Alex's hand, landing on the counter with a dull thud. His legs felt weak, and he sank into a chair, his head in his hands. For a moment, he couldn't breathe, the weight of the betrayal crushing him. Hours later, Clara came home, her heels clicking against the tile floor. Alex was still sitting at the table. The messages burned into his memory. He looked up as she walked in, her expression startled when she saw him awake. "You're still up?" she asked, her voice cautious. Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, He stood, his eyes locking onto hers. Who's he? He asked. His voice steady but cold. Clara froze, her bag slipping from her shoulder and hitting the floor. The room was silent, the question hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. And in that moment, Alex knew their lives would never be the same. Clara stared at Alex, her lips slightly parted as if searching for the right words. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Alex's gaze never wavered, his fists clenched at his sides, waiting for her to answer. Who's he? He repeated, his voice rising slightly. Don't lie to me, Clara. Her eyes darted away, focusing on the floor as she bit her lip. It's just a friend, she said finally, her tone defensive. You're overreacting. A friend? Alex laughed bitterly, running a hand through his hair. Friends don't send messages like, last night was amazing. Do you think I'm stupid? Clara's face flushed with anger. Stop snooping through my phone. You had no right. I had every right. Alex cut her off, his voice louder now. You're my wife. You're supposed to be honest with me, not sneaking around behind my back. She folded her arms across her chest, her jaw tightening. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have to talk to someone else. The words hit Alex like a slap to the face. He took a step back, his breath catching in his throat. So it's my fault? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You're blaming me for this? I'm not saying it's your fault, Clara said, her tone softer now, but it only made her words sting more. I'm saying, I've been unhappy for a long time. Alex, you don't listen. You don't see me anymore. Alex shook his head, struggling to process her words. Unhappy? He repeated. We've been struggling. Yes. But I thought we were in this together. I've been doing everything I can to provide for this family. Clara looked away, her silence speaking volumes. The truth was there, plain and undeniable. Whatever bond they had once shared had been eroded, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but resentment and distance. The argument stretched on, each word sharpening the divide between them. Alex accused, Clara deflected. He demanded the truth, she gave half answers and vague excuses. The tension in the room was unbearable, the air thick with anger and hurt. Finally, Alex slammed his hand on the table, his voice shaking with rage. I deserve better than this. Clara, Lily deserves better. If you don't love me anymore, just say it. Clara flinched, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quietly. It just happened. Alex stared at her, his heart breaking all over again. How long? He asked, his voice hollow. How long has this been going on? She hesitated before answering, her voice barely audible. A few months. Months. The word echoed in Alex's mind, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. For months, she had been lying to him, betraying him, while he had been working tirelessly to hold their family together. Clara packed a small bag that night and left the apartment. Alex didn't stop her. He didn't have the energy or the will to fight anymore. Instead, he sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the phone she had left behind, the incriminating messages still visible on the screen. When Lily woke the next morning, she found Alex asleep on the couch, his face pale and drawn. Where's Mommy? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Alex forced a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. Mommy's taking a break, he said, his throat tight. But I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. As the days turned into weeks, Alex tried to keep life as normal as possible for Lily. He threw himself into work, keeping busy to avoid thinking about Clara and the man she had chosen over him. But no matter how hard he tried, the pain lingered, a constant ache in his chest. Meanwhile, Clara's life with Ethan was far from the fairy tale she had envisioned. At first, everything seemed perfect: romantic dinners, late-night drives, and whispered promises of a brighter future. But as time went on, the cracks began to show. Ethan was possessive, demanding, and quick to anger. He didn't share Clara's dreams of building a stable life. He thrived on chaos and excitement. The things that had once seemed thrilling now felt suffocating, and Clara began to question the choices that had led her here. One night, after another explosive argument, Clara found herself standing outside Ethan's apartment. Her suitcase in hand, she looked up at the window, where the light was still on, and hesitated. She had left everything for this man, her husband, her child, her home, and now she wasn't sure if she could stay. But where else could she go? Back at the apartment, Alex was beginning to find his footing. With the help of his sister, Emily, he started attending therapy sessions and focusing on his own well-being. He enrolled Lily in a preschool with a nurturing environment and began taking her to the park every weekend. One evening, as he watched Lily run across the playground, her laughter filling the air, Alex felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in months. He still missed Clara, still wondered if things could have been different. But he knew he couldn't change the past. All he could do was move forward, for himself and for Lily. The weeks after Clara's departure stretched into months. Alex fell into a routine: work, pick Lily up from preschool, cook dinner, and spend quiet evenings playing with his daughter. The pain of Clara's betrayal lingered, but the sting lessened as time passed. His therapist encouraged him to focus on the future rather than dwell on the past. Advice he clung to as a lifeline. But even as he rebuilt his life, Clara was never far from his mind. Every time Lily asked about her mother, Alex felt his heart twist. He tried his best to explain, using words a 3-year-old could understand. "Mommy's figuring some things out," he would say, "but she loves you very much." Lily seemed to accept his answers, though her occasional tears reminded Alex of the wound Clara had left behind, not just in him, but in their daughter. Clara's new life with Ethan was unraveling rapidly. His charm, so intoxicating at first, had given way to a darker side. He was controlling and dismissive, his once thoughtful gestures now replaced by apathy and bursts of anger. Clara often found herself sitting alone in his apartment, scrolling through old photos of Alex and Lily on her phone. One day, after an especially heated argument, Clara called her best friend, Mia, in tears. "I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought this was what I wanted. But I've lost everything." Mia, who had been a quiet observer of Clara's decisions, didn't hold back. "You need to figure out what you're going to do, Clara. You can't keep running from the mess you made." Those words echoed in Clara's mind for days. She knew Mia was right. But the thought of facing Alex again, of admitting how deeply she had hurt him, terrified her. Meanwhile, Alex's world was beginning to brighten in unexpected ways. At work, he had grown close to Sophia, a colleague who had joined the team a few months prior. Sophia was kind, funny, and empathetic, qualities that Alex found both comforting and unfamiliar after the coldness of his last years with Clara. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Sophia invited Alex to grab coffee. They sat at a small cafe, talking about everything from work to childhood memories. For the first time in months, Alex laughed, truly laughed, and felt a glimmer of hope. As they parted ways, Sophia smiled at him, her eyes warm. "You're doing great, Alex. I can see how much you care about your daughter. She's lucky to have you." Her words stayed with him long after she left. They didn't erase the pain of the past, but they planted a seed of something new, a possibility he hadn't dared to consider before. On a quiet Sunday morning, Alex was helping Lily build a tower out of blocks when there was a knock at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone and assumed it was his sister dropping by unannounced. But when he opened the door, his heart stopped. Clara stood there, her hair disheveled and her face pale. She held a small suitcase in one hand, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Alex," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" For a long moment, Alex said nothing, his emotions warring within him. Anger, sadness, and a flicker of something else, hope, rose to the surface. Finally, he stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Clara's gaze swept over the apartment, lingering on Lily, who was watching from the living room. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling. Lily's face lit up. "Mommy," she cried, running toward her. Clara knelt to embrace her, tears streaming down her face. As Alex watched, his chest tightened. He didn't know what Clara wanted or why she was here. But he knew one thing for certain. This conversation was long overdue. Once Lily was occupied with her toys. Alex and Clara sat at the kitchen table, the tension between them palpable. Clara fidgeted with her hands, unable to meet Alex's eyes. "I shouldn't have left like I did," she began. I thought I wanted something different. Something better. But I was wrong." Alex's jaw tightened. "You didn't just leave, Clara. You broke us. You broke Lily." "I know," Clara whispered, her voice cracking, "and I'll never forgive myself for that. But I want to make things right. If you'll let me." "Make things right?" Alex repeated, his tone bitter. "You think you can just walk back in here and fix everything?" "I don't expect forgiveness," Clara said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I just want a chance to be in Lily's life again. Please." Alex stared at her, his emotions in turmoil. Part of him wanted to slam the door on her and the pain she had caused. But another part, the part that still remembered the woman he had fallen in love with, wanted to believe she was sincere. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," he said finally, "but Lily deserves to have her mother." Over the next few weeks, Clara began visiting the apartment regularly to spend time with Lily. Alex kept his distance during these visits, unsure of how to navigate their complicated dynamic. He appreciated Clara's efforts but couldn't ignore the scars she had left behind. Meanwhile, his friendship with Sophia deepened. She became a confidant, offering him support and encouragement as he tried to figure out what the future should look like. One evening, as Alex sat on the couch after Clara had left, Sophia called. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I don't know," Alex admitted. "It's like I'm caught between the past and the future. I want to move on. But a part of you still cares about her." Sophia finished gently. Alex sighed. "Yeah." Sophia paused before saying, "Take your time, Alex. You don't have to have all the answers right now." Clara's visits became a routine. And while Alex remained cautious, Lily seemed to thrive with her mother's presence. Her laughter was more frequent, and the way she clung to Clara when she left tugged at Alex's heart. Despite his anger and mistrust, he couldn't deny that Clara was trying. One evening, after Clara had put Lily to bed, she lingered in the kitchen, tidying up. Alex stood in the doorway, watching her carefully. It was the first time in months they were alone together without the shadow of an argument. "Alex," Clara began hesitantly, turning to face him, "I want to thank you for letting me see Lily. I know I don't deserve it, but it means everything to me." He folded his arms across his chest, leaning against the doorframe. "You're her mother. I'm doing this for her." Clara nodded, her eyes dropping to the floor. "I know, but I also want to make things right between us. I miss us." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken for too long. Alex's heart clenched, torn between the pain of her betrayal and the lingering love he had once felt for her. "You miss us?" he repeated, his tone edged with bitterness. "Where was that when you were with him? Where was that when you left Lily crying at night, asking for you?" Clara flinched as though he'd slapped her. "I was selfish. I thought I was chasing happiness. But I was running away from everything that mattered. I know I can't undo what I did. But I want to try. Please, Alex." Alex shook his head, the anger he'd tried to bury rising to the surface. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Clara, and I sure as hell don't know if I can trust you again." Her tears spilled over, but she didn't argue. Instead, she nodded and quietly left the apartment, leaving Alex standing in the doorway, his emotions a tangled mess. A week later, Sophia invited Alex to dinner at her apartment. He hesitated, unsure if it was the right thing to do, but ultimately agreed. He needed a reprieve from the confusion and the weight of his past. Sophia greeted him with a warm smile, her small apartment filled with the comforting scent of baked lasagna. They spent the evening talking, laughing, and sharing stories. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt light. As they sat on her couch after dinner, Sophia leaned closer, her gaze searching his. "You've been through so much, Alex. You deserve to be happy." Her words hit him like a soft wave, washing over the walls he had built around his heart. He didn't resist when she leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, and filled with a tenderness he hadn't felt in years. But as he drove home that night, The kiss lingered in his mind alongside the memory of Clara's tearful plea. Two paths stretched before him, each fraught with uncertainty. Clara, meanwhile, was determined to prove she had changed. She attended parenting workshops, sought therapy, and even started volunteering at a local community center. Her relationship with Ethan was officially over, and she was focused on rebuilding herself and her bond with Lily. One day, as she played with Lily at the park, she saw Alex approaching, his expression unreadable. He stood at the edge of the playground, watching them, and for a moment, she felt hope. "I want to talk," Alex said when Lily ran off to play with another child. "Not here. Tonight." Clara nodded, her heart pounding. That evening, Clara arrived at the apartment, her hands trembling as she knocked on the door. Alex let her in, his face serious but calm. They sat at the kitchen table, the same place where their marriage had fallen apart months earlier. "I've been thinking a lot," Alex began, his voice steady. "About us. About Lily. About the future." Clara waited, her hands clenched in her lap. "I can see you're trying," he continued, "and I know you love Lily. But I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I used to." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. But she didn't interrupt. "I don't want to make any promises I can't keep," Alex said, his voice softening. "But for Lily's sake, I'm willing to take this one step at a time. Co-parenting. For now." Clara nodded, relief flooding her features. "That's all I'm asking for. A chance to be there for her, and to show you that I've changed." Over the next few months, Alex and Clara worked to establish a fragile but functional co-parenting arrangement. Clara became a regular presence in Lily's life, and Alex began to see glimpses of the woman he had once fallen in love with. But he also couldn't ignore his growing feelings for Sophia, who had become an anchor in his life. One evening, as Alex tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him with her big, innocent eyes. "Daddy, do you still love Mommy?" The question took him by surprise. And for a moment, he didn't know how to answer. "I love you and Mommy very much," he said finally, "but love can be different sometimes." Lily seemed satisfied with his answer. But Alex couldn't stop thinking about her question. Did he still love Clara? Or was he holding on to a memory of what they used to be? The tension in Alex's life grew as his relationship with Clara shifted into cautious co-parenting and his bond with Sophia deepened. Each woman represented a different path. Clara, a connection to the life he had built and lost. Sophia, a chance at a new beginning. But Alex couldn't ignore the weight of the decision he faced, not just for himself but for Lily. One evening, after a long day at work, Alex found himself sitting on the couch with Sophia. She had come over to help him organize some files for an upcoming project. But the work was forgotten as they shared a glass of wine. "You've been quiet," Sophia said, watching him closely. "Is everything okay?" Alex sighed, setting his glass on the coffee table. "I don't know," he admitted. "Clara's been trying so hard to fix things. And part of me wonders if I should give her that chance, for Lily's sake." Sophia's expression didn't waver, but Alex could see the flicker of hurt in her eyes. "And what about you?" she asked softly. "What do you want, Alex?" "I don't know," he said again, his voice heavy with uncertainty. "That's the problem. I feel like I'm being pulled in two directions. And I don't know which one is right." Sophia nodded, her hand resting gently on his. "I can't tell you what to do. But I will say this. Don't stay in the past out of guilt or obligation. You deserve to be happy, Alex. And so does Lily." Her words stayed with him long after she left that night. Clara had been attending therapy religiously, determined to confront the choices that had led her to betray her family. Her therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Nguyen, didn't let her off easy. "You say you want to rebuild your relationship with Alex," Dr. Nguyen said during one session. "But why? Is it because you truly love him? Or because you're afraid to face the consequences of losing him?" Clara hesitated, the question cutting deeper than she had expected. "I do love him," she said finally, "but I also know I hurt him in ways I can't undo. I want to be the person he and Lily deserve. Then focus on being that person," Dr. Nguyen said, "not to win him back, but because it's the right thing to do, for yourself and for them." That night, Clara wrote Alex a letter. She poured her heart onto the page, apologizing for her actions and acknowledging the pain she had caused. But instead of asking for forgiveness or a second chance, she simply thanked him for letting her remain a part of Lily's life. She left the letter in his mailbox the next morning. Alex found the letter later that day. Its envelope addressed simply to Alex, sitting at the kitchen table. He unfolded the page and began to read. Clara's words were raw and honest, filled with regret but also a newfound strength. She didn't ask for anything from him, only expressed her gratitude and her hope that one day they could find peace. For the first time, Alex saw Clara not as the woman who had betrayed him, but as a person struggling to make amends. It stirred something inside him, sympathy, respect, but not necessarily the love they had once shared. That evening, Alex called Sophia. "Can we talk?" he asked. Sophia agreed, and they met at a quiet cafe near her apartment. Alex explained everything: Clara's letter, his feelings, and his uncertainty about the future. "I care about you, Sophia," he said, his voice steady, "and I don't want to lose what we've started. But I need to be sure. For Lily, for myself, I need to know I'm making the right choice." Sophia reached across the table, taking his hand. "Take all the time you need, Alex. I'm here, no matter what." A week later, Alex sat with Clara in the park where they often brought Lily. She was playing on the swings, her laughter ringing out as the cool autumn breeze rustled the leaves. "I read your letter," Alex said, breaking the silence. Clara turned to him, her expression hopeful but cautious. "And?" she asked. "I appreciate your honesty," he said, "and I see how hard you're working to change. But I've realized something. I don't think we can go back to what we were." Clara's face fell, but she nodded, her eyes glistening. "I understand. That doesn't mean you're not important to me," Alex continued, "or to Lily. We'll always be a family in some way. But I think we need to move forward separately." Clara wiped a tear from her cheek, forcing a small smile. "I want you to be happy, Alex, whatever that looks like." As Alex walked back to the apartment that evening, he felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. He had made his choice, and for the first time in months, he felt at peace. He called Sophia as soon as he got home. "I want to see you," he said. When she arrived, Alex didn't hesitate. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her. The weight of his doubts finally lifted. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. "I'm ready to move forward, with you." Sophia smiled, her eyes shining. "Me too." Months later, Alex and Sophia stood in the park, watching Lily chase bubbles across the grass. Clara joined them occasionally, her relationship with Alex now one of mutual respect and shared love for their daughter. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and for Alex, that was enough. As he held Sophia's hand, watching Lily's laughter light up the evening, he finally felt what he had been searching for all along: hope, happiness, and a future worth fighting for. Months turned into a year, and the rhythm of Alex's new life became steady. Co-parenting with Clara was no longer fraught with tension but filled with cooperation and mutual effort. They coordinated schedules, attended Lily's preschool events together, and even shared brief moments of laughter during drop-offs and pickups. Clara, for her part, had transformed. Her once impetuous and self-centered demeanor had softened, replaced by a calm maturity. She had found fulfillment in her volunteer work and a part-time job at a local bookstore. Her focus on Lily was unwavering, and Alex couldn't help but admire her growth, even as their paths diverged. Sophia, meanwhile, had become a cornerstone of Alex's life. Their relationship had deepened in ways he hadn't expected. She had embraced both him and Lily, understanding the complexities of their blended dynamic. What Alex appreciated most was her patience. Sophia never pushed, always letting him set the pace. One weekend, they celebrated Lily's 5th birthday at the park. Alex and Sophia organized a small gathering, complete with balloons, a princess-themed cake, and games. Clara arrived early to help set up, bringing handmade decorations that delighted Lily. Watching Lily run around with her friends, Alex felt a deep sense of gratitude. Clara and Sophia, two women who could have been rivals, Instead worked together seamlessly for Lily's happiness. It was a testament to their shared love for the little girl who tied them all together. "Thank you for this," Clara said softly to Alex as they stood by the picnic table. "She's so happy. She deserves it," Alex replied, glancing at Sophia, who was helping Lily with her party hat. "We all do." As Alex's relationship with Sophia flourished, he began to think about the future more seriously. One evening, after Lily was asleep, he invited Sophia to his apartment for dinner. It was a simple meal, but Alex had spent the entire day perfecting it. Afterward, they sat on the couch, sipping wine and talking about their plans for the holidays. Sophia was laughing at one of Alex's stories when he suddenly grew quiet. "What's wrong?" she asked. Setting her glass down, Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a delicate gold ring with a single diamond. "Sophia," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You came into my life at a time when I didn't think I could move forward. You've shown me love, patience, and kindness, not just for me but for Lily, too. I don't want to imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded before pulling him into a tight embrace. "Yes," she whispered, "a million times, yes." When Alex told Clara about the engagement, he was unsure how she would react. They met at a coffee shop while Lily was at preschool. Clara listened intently as Alex shared the news, her face unreadable. Finally, she smiled. "I'm happy for you, Alex," she said. "Sophia's a wonderful woman. You deserve this." Her words were genuine, but as she sipped her coffee, a hint of sadness flickered in her eyes. Clara knew this was the end of any lingering hope she might have had for reconciliation. But she had made peace with it. She had learned to value Alex's happiness as much as her own. "I appreciate that," Alex said, relieved. "I want you to know that no matter what, we'll always be a team for Lily." Clara nodded. "That's all I could ever ask for." The wedding was a small, intimate affair, held in a garden on a crisp spring afternoon. Lily was the flower girl, her face glowing with excitement as she scattered petals down the aisle. Clara sat in the second row, smiling through tears as she watched Alex and Sophia exchange vows. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. As Alex slid the ring onto Sophia's finger, he felt a deep sense of contentment. He had traveled a long road to get here, but every step had led him to this moment. Years later, Alex and Sophia's home was filled with laughter and warmth. Lily, now a confident and curious 8-year-old, thrived in the loving environment they had created. Clara remained an active part of Lily's life, her relationship with Alex marked by mutual respect and occasional family dinners. One evening, as Alex sat on the porch watching the sunset with Sophia, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The pain, the mistakes, the healing, it had all shaped the life he now cherished. "Penny for your thoughts?" Sophia asked, leaning her head on his shoulder. Alex smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "Just thinking about how lucky I am." Sophia laughed softly. "We both are." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Alex felt an overwhelming sense of peace. His life wasn't perfect, but it was full of love, family, and hope for the future. And that, he realized, was more than enough.